Christians believe Jesus is Son of God. And Muslims believe God doesn't have sons and daughters. It is too blasphemous an idea to attribute daughters and sons to God. But Christians believe Jesus is Son of God. However, they do not know how. Jesus is Son of God. The fact that Mother Mary was not touched by a man, and the birth of Jesus was immaculate birth, does it lead to this supposition that God is the Father because Mother Mary was not touched by a man? What do you think?
It does. It does, yes.
Say it.
Gee, it does lead to the supposition that
Is this how Jesus is Son of God?
no.
Then how is Jesus Son of God? Because when you say Jesus, Mother Mary was not touched by a man, and birth of Jesus was immaculate, you are just talking about the body.
True. Just about it.
Do Christians believe that the body of Jesus is Son of God?
That's what the Holy Spirit is separate, but this concept in itself, we used to go to church, and they would say that because this way of birth, this is why he is the Son of God, because he didn't have a human father, and this birth was through God, and this is why he's the Son of God. I remember hearing this.
Exactly.
So it's a general supposition.
One man, I will explain to you how Jesus is Son of God. But not the way they understand.
Gee.
But before I explain to you how Jesus is Son of God, let me share with you Sarkar's conversation with a Christian. In Pakistan, a Christian came to see Sarkar. And he said, we are a greater nation than all else. Sarkar said, okay. How? And he said, because Jesus didn't have a father. And instantly Sarkar said, in that case, Prophet Adam is greater than Jesus. Because he didn't have mother also. And then Sarkar said, this is not how Jesus is greater. Let me tell you, what is it that makes Jesus greater than the rest?
Subhanallah.
You see, body of Jesus is not Son of God. Right? Body of Jesus is not Son of God. Before Jesus, there have been many incidents where we had immaculate birth. You know, for example, Prophet Abraham, his wife Sarah was barren. And because his wife was barren, so he didn't have any offspring. And then God said to him, okay, find a woman and don't marry her, yeah, and she will serve you as a concubine. And you may have offspring with her. So his barren wife Sarah, she found an Egyptian woman. She had dark complexion, and not, I don't want to say black, but dark complexion. So she delivered a baby, and that baby was named Ismail. And after the baby was born, Abraham's attention and love shifted from Sarah to Hagar, because Sarah was barren and Hagar now had a baby, and his attention and his love and compassion, everything shifted to Hagar and the baby. And Sarah got really jealous. You know, women get jealous notoriously. It was normal, you know. She got really jealous, and she started to beat up Hagar. And she would give Abraham a really terrible time. So God said to Abraham, Abraham, go, take this woman and your son and leave them in Arabian Peninsula. So he left them. He went there and he left them. And when he came back, he was really sad. And he was sitting very quietly, and suddenly he realized Gabriel was standing in front of him. And Gabriel said, I see you don't have any progeny. And he didn't pay attention. He said, yeah. And then he said, God asked me to work a miracle. Would you be interested enough to listen to me? I said, how? He said, I would simply place my palm on your wife's backbone, and she would be okay then. And then he placed his palm on her back, and she became pregnant. And the baby, as a result of this pregnancy, was born, was called Isaac, Ishaq.
जी
So this prophet Isaac was also, father and motherless. The Jews don't know about this.
जी बेशक
So when a baby is born,
जी
and this baby does not have a father, it doesn't mean the baby is son of God,
जी
right?
जी
Why? Because God doesn't have a body like you do.
true
God's structure is spiritual like your soul. If God is going to have a baby, right? If God is going to have a son or a daughter, then that son and daughter will be on his own structure, spiritual.
true
Simple, isn't it?
simple yes
So what can be a son of God or a daughter of God is the soul, not the body.
not the body true
And when a baby is born without having a biological father, then this is not something we can attribute to God having a son or daughter. This is simply a work of miracle.
सही
And how does it happen?
जी
He uses his power of command be. He would imagine an ovary of a woman and he would say, let there be a sperm, and there would be a sperm.
right
Let there be a baby, and there would be a baby. So God's son is not the body. It has to be a soul. Now, what is the origin of that soul? What is the origin of a soul? Yesterday I explained this in Urdu,
बेशक
and I doubt whether Faisal did justice to translation. We have two different types of corpuscles in our blood. If you deeply look into formation, synthesis of blood, there are colorless corpuscles, and there are white blood corpuscles, and there are red blood corpuscles. There are three different types of corpuscles that synthesize blood. And these red blood corpuscles are the active what do you call it? They play an active role. They're live. When God's name has entered the heart and your heart has now started producing divine light, and that divine light now mingles in your bloodstream, and when that divine light mingles into your bloodstream and penetrates into red blood corpuscles, every corpuscle in your blood will start to whisper God's name. And a point will come when your entire blood in the body has been spiritualized.
Wow.
Then your heart will say God's name one time, and God's name will echo in your bloodstream 35 million times. Can you imagine the quantity of the production of divine light? When your heart says God's name, whispers God's name one time, right? It echoes 35 million times in your bloodstream.
Wow.
And when heart has been initiated and remembrance of God has been implanted, and your heart is now in eternal commemoration of God's name, the heart will not stop, regardless of the fact that you are busy in some other activities, like you're sleeping, or you are at work, or you're playing, or you're reading a newspaper, or you're playing Fruit Ninja on your iPhone. Your heart is carefree of the activities of your body. And the heart will whisper God's name 6,000 times per hour. How many times per hour?
6,000 times per hour.
6,000 times per hour.
Gee.
If you multiply 1 hour's remembrance of God by your heart by 35 million times, multiply 6,000 by 35 million times. This is how much divine light is produced in your heart. You become ridiculously divine in no time.
Nice. Ridiculously divine.
Yeah, it's a joke.
Gee, basic.
I mean, what people have been doing in jungles for many, many years,
Kya baat.
they didn't have this Goharian philosophy of divine love.
Subhanallah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Subhanallah.
So 6,000 times in 1 hour. And in 24 hours a day. The number of times your heart is going to whisper God's name will exceed 144,000 times. 144,000 times a day. Now you need to multiply 144,000 times by 35 million. Can you multiply and tell me the right figure? Oh my gosh. 504 billion times.
Subhanallah. Kya baat hai sir? Marhaba sir.
And have you seen these Arabs holding rosary in their hands, and teasing girls on the street, looking at their boobies. I mean, how many times do they whisper God's name on those rosaries? Maybe 1,000 times a day, maybe 2,000 times a day. And look at this man who's doing nothing, just sleeping. He's just sleeping. And his internal system, after initiation of the heart, his internal system whispers God's name 4 billion times. And that's just one soul, only heart.
504 billion.
4 billion times. And Sarkar Gohar Shahi said, the soul, the intensity of the soul is 70,000 times more than the heart. So if you multiply 504 billion by 70,000, this error is not just in your computer. Sarkar said, a time comes when the angels cannot count the number of times you whisper God's name, and the scale is removed from your chest. क्यों नदीम भाई? You are never short of divine energy. This is why our people, when they blow upon people, they get healed quickly. I mean, there are others that nothing happens. This is what your blood can do. The germs in your blood. This is what the germs in your blood can do. They can whisper God's name, but that's it. They cannot do any further. No other activity can be performed by these red germs in your blood. But the Lord said, God also has similar germs in His body. They're not red. They're not red. And it's not blood. It's just, milky liquid. It runs through his body. And this liquid has germs, And the Lord said, whenever God wants, one of these germs from inside his body pop out from his body. One of these germs pop out from his body and take the shape of a soul. These germs, like you have germs in your blood, in a similar way, in a similar fashion, God also has germs in His body. But it's not like your germs, your filthy germs. God's germs are obviously notoriously pure. His germs, whenever He wants them, and the number of times He wants them to come out, whenever a germ from His body pop out, that germ takes shape of a soul. And if that soul enters into your body when you are born, you are a son of God. That is what Jesus has. A germ from Father's body came out and turned into a soul. And that soul turned into flesh again when he was born. Do you now understand? So, the red blood cells within blood are responsible for carrying oxygen. What carries oxygen within blood is red blood cells, RBCs, right? And it is also called, the substance is called hemoglobin. What is it called? Hemoglobin. Right. When you run short of hemoglobin in your blood, then you develop an ailment called anemia. Okay? So in order to increase in hemoglobin, you need to eat a lot of spinach, you need iron. It doesn't mean you start, eating iron bars. Do you understand it, Brother Steve? Yes. Do you?
Yes.
Now, one thing is still, it hasn't been explained how Jesus was able to speak when he was still a baby.
Wow.
Because according to spiritual sciences, it is not possible. Hmm? According to spiritual sciences, according to divine law, it is not possible for a baby, not baby of 2 years, while he was still his infancy.
Bilkul.
He was infant, wasn't he?
He was. Yes.
Yes.
When babies begin to say words when they're at least 18 months old.
True.
But maybe he was a few hours old,
True.
and people asked Mother Mary, "Who is this? Where did it come from?" And she said, "Ask the baby, I don't know anything." And the baby Jesus said who he is.
Yes, he did.
How did it happen? Of course, we can simply say,
Okay.
oh, it's a divine miracle or this and that. But how does it work?
Wow.
In the primordial times, when God created all the souls were in front of God. And God asked all the souls. What did he say?
He asked all the souls.
Now what was the word he said?
Alastu bi rabbikum.
Am I not your Lord? When he had created all the souls in the primordial times, all the souls assembled before him, and he asked them, "Am I not your Lord?" And all the souls replied in positive. And they said, "Yes." Now, before you came into this world, your souls were able to speak. Then how come when a baby is born doesn't speak for at least 1.5 years? And how come no other prophet was able to speak in infancy? Only Jesus was able to speak. This is a question. Now, number 2, babies. Just think about it. Babies. Obviously, when the baby is born, they don't know anybody.
They don't.
Do they?
No, they don't.
They don't know anybody.
Yeah.
But the mother stays with the baby 24 hours a day. So the baby develops this understanding that this woman is closely related. And then the father, the baby doesn't know this woman who's taking care of her is her mother. And the father who disappears for 12 hours and come back after 12 hours is the father. You know? And then babies play, uncles and aunties and others play with the baby. And the babies, they start to show emotions. Like when somebody who spends a lot of time with the baby, when he comes, they get really happy. You can see the glee on their face.
True.
It means they do have emotions while they're still babies.
Yes.
Now why do they have emotions? You have emotions because the soul's in your breast.
Wow.
Now because you have emotions at this age, it means the souls are working.
Wow.
But for 18 months at least, the baby doesn't speak. They cry. And they make weird sounds, you know. But they don't speak. However, Jesus was able to speak.
Yes.
Now there is one thing very important that I would like to remind you of. It was not simply the fact that Jesus was able to speak, but being a baby, just speaking words is not enough for a person in capacity of Lord Jesus Christ. I mean, the baby could have said, I am this, I am that. It was not simply the fact that Jesus was able to speak in infancy. At the same time, Jesus was aware of who He is. Jesus wasn't merely speaking, but He was speaking the truth. Who He is.
Basic.
Right? Jesus had this Gnostic knowledge in Him while He was still a baby. And He knew who He is. Right?
Yes. Right.
I mean, just for the sake of saying something, the baby could have said anything.
G.
Could have said, I'm a baby, and this is my mother, and this is my uncle. But if Jesus said all these things, I wouldn't take it as a miracle.
True.
Because these are just utterances of words.
Yes, it is. They are.
But what signifies in the fact that Jesus spoke in infancy was that He knew who He was.
Very nice.
The baby knows who He is. It means it was Jesus' soul who was speaking. It was? If it was only a baby, then this soul, which is responsible for speaking, will speak. But because Jesus spoke about His origin, Jesus spoke who He is, it definitely determines the fact that it was not the soul in the center of the chest which enables a man to speak, rather it was Jesus' own soul that came from the unseen world.
Subhanallah.
Do you understand the point?
Yes, yes, yes.
So now there are two things. Number one, baby was able to speak, but then if it was just baby speaking, then the baby could have said anything, anything normal, like I'm a baby.
G. Say what?
And this is baby mother. And this is baby auntie.
G.
But this would be ridiculous.
It would, yes.
And it wouldn't signify the highly esteemed personality who was transporting himself and manifesting upon the face of the world, all the way coming back to the unseen world. The more significant factor involved here, behind the wails of baby speaking, the baby Jesus, it was his soul. It was not a normal speech. The speech did not come from where it always comes in human beings. The speech was coming from not the faculty of speech, but rather it was coming from the main soul of Jesus. The difference between these two babies is that the time. This baby spoke 17 months and 29 days earlier than this one. However, this baby doesn't know who he is and this baby doesn't know who he is. But this is not the case.
No, it's not the case.
This baby, who is a baby Jesus, not only spoke when he was few hours old, but at the same time, this baby knew. Mother doesn't know who he is, but he knows who he is. Mother Mary said, don't ask me anything, I don't know anything. Ask him, and he will tell you. And he spoke, and he said who he is. This is the main thing. So the miracle is not that the baby spoke in the cradle.
Yes.
The main thing is the baby said who he is while he was still in the cradle.
Yes. Beautiful.
I hope you understand.
Yes.
This point is very important.
Very sure.